Welcome to the British Isles and the famous Silverstone, where here the Indy Pro 2000 Series makes a quick international trip, and we will go racing at one of the most famous circuits in the world. 3.2 miles, 5.13 kilometers. There are a total of 18 corners, and if you love Formula 3, Formula 2, and Formula 1 style racing, well, these cars are going to be sure to put on a treat for you today. There's so many places to overtake and so many intense corners that these drivers are going to be hanging on the edge of their seat. This is the 8th round in the championship. Last week we were at Sebring. There was a thriller all the way to the end for every position on track. And after this week, we still international. We head to Imola down in Italy before heading back to the States for a trip at USA Speedway. The final two races on the calendar, Spa and Road Atlanta, will round out this first season, and this championship is getting tighter and tighter. Jack Ashton currently leads. Greg Sainz, needs, I think, a win or two to close him down, but Frank Newen, Mr. Consistent, in third. Everett Paddock and Joyce Ingles, fourth and fifth. Don Rathburn, Andrew Dixon, Thomas Seiger, John Bishop, and Loke Barb rounding out this top 10. And for Jack Ashton, this is probably a welcome sight. He's coming home to a home circuit with a championship lead. We thank you now for joining us here on this Friday. My name is Jonathan Burke. Alongside me is Tom Davis, Hugo Luis doing the camera work, and the camera's provided by TrackCams22. And Tom, I know this is kind of a home circuit for you in a sense. It's not too far from Scotland. What are you looking forward to most in this race?
Yeah, not too far relative to the other places we're going on this calendar, I think is a fair assessment. This race is going to be fantastic all round. Obviously, I've seen a lot of races at Silverstone, watching stuff like British Touring Cars, British GT, all of our local series, as well as the international series that come here. And I think between that, I've seen an overtake at every single corner on this circuit. It is so open, it's quick and flowing, but there's braking zones in the important areas. You can go side by side through Copse. You can go side by side on the entry to the incredible Beckett's Chapel complex. You come out of that, huge run up to Stowe, then braking zones to complete the lap. It's got a little bit of everything, and that's why it's such a classic.
I think it's going to prove to be a challenge for many of the drivers today, just to try and find a place to defend or overtake. As you can see, qualifying is underway. We have a little more than 4 minutes left. Ideal times a little under 2 minutes. 1:53s is the area you want to go. Currently, Jack Ashton just pipped the timing board. We run on board with Greg Sainz. He sits pretty far behind in the championship standings, but I think we still have plenty of time for him to make something up.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little bit give and take as well. Remember, in these championship standings, I believe we got some drop scores that can still be accounted for. So Greg Sainz, he's away, but not as far away as he might appear to be as such. But obviously, he would rather be ahead of Ashton just to make completely sure of everything.
And we still have other competitors in this field that we've seen week in and week out. Andrew Berry, currently in the 13 car, coming around halfway through the lap into Copse right now. And we have a pretty sizable field, currently 16 in. We did have a split, so there's a top and a bottom split. But even with 16 cars, it's going to be tight going through some of these sections, especially Village, the Loop, and onto the Wellington Straight, that little complex at the start of this race. It's going to be hairy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the track does lend itself to keeping the cars nice and bunched together in the opening few corners. You come through a pretty quick turn 1 at Abbey, and then you're flat through turn 2. Braking zones into 3 and 4, but ultimately the track's wide enough to have you go 3. I've seen 4 abreast there at one point as well, so plenty of opportunities throughout those opening few laps. And as a result, people look to take advantage of that, and the field just stays right together as one.
Riding on board Joyce Ingles, going through Maggots and Beckett's, and this is going to be one of the tricky sections, I think, if you're following anyone with nose to tail. If you lose that downforce on that front wing, it's going to be really tricky to get a good run down the Hanger Straight.
Yeah, it's quick corners, and ultimately that's where you need the downforce. So it is going to be important to make sure you close up at the right point on the circuit, the same as we talk about in Formula 1, of course. So you come through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel, and you do lose a little bit, but you then got a massive run up to the Hanger Straight, and then even the run off of Stowe as well. That gives you the chance to slipstream, close the gap once again, and be looking for a move into the Vale chicane.
Callan Williams just went to the top of the board, pipping Ashton and Sainz, but Sainz immediately responds, going to the top of qualifying with a 152.9. Loic Barb currently sitting in 7th. Looks like that run is done. There's the 16 machine, Manuel Perdesi's, and checkered flag is out for him as we get set for the gridding of this race. Again, 16 cars in this field, and it should be a blast. Let's get to the following lineup. Greg Seitz is in P1, Callan Williams from Australia in P2, Jack Ashton, the hometown hero, in going to be P3, Frank Newen, Mr. Consistent, in P4, Mitchell Ian Green, the Pennsylvanian, from P5, Mario Norris in P6. Row 4, Loic Barb and Tony Stack. Row 5, Alan Jolly, who's run the most races currently of anyone registered in this field, with a total of 6 this week. Fabio Berchold in P10. Manuel Perdesi's in the number 16 in P11. Thomas Zeiger a little bit further back in P12. Andrew Barry, the number 13 in P13. Servi Seppa starting 14th, but he can climb up through the field slow and steady. Stefan Remedy from Canada in P15, and Joyce Ingles rounds out your field of 16. So a little bit shorter of a pace lap here. We're on the entrance, it looks like, to Stowe. And this is going to be a really interesting start because you mentioned it. We're flat out through Abbey and Farm, and then we go into Village. That's going to be the first big overtaking zone. How are these guys going to be able to handle it?
You got two options. So, as we mentioned, nice and wide. You can look to the inside, try and get it done on the brakes. If you go to the outside, also you can carry a little bit more speed. Your corner radius isn't as tight, and that then gives you the inside into turn 4. So there's always going to be an option for you to either make up a place or defend, regardless of where you end up. It's just a case of how brave you are and how much respect you're going to show your rivals.
We saw last week some pretty fantastic racing, great back and forth stuff, not a lot of contact, not a lot of accidents, and it was really good to see. And that's something, again, you really love about this community is they respect each other, they give each other space when they need to be, and it's good, fantastic racing. Well, the pace car is now off as we head around Stowe, and this should be interesting. Without a long warm-up lap as well, these guys are going to have cold tires going into Village. Could make for a little bit of chaos like we saw at the beginning of VIR and other courses. Well, the pace car already down pit road as we head into the final chicane, 16 and 17, and the field will not accelerate. Greg Seitz is getting a little bit antsy, and I think he's already gone. Yes, Greg Seitz is gone to the exit of 18 way before the start-finish line. That was a perfect jump by the one machine, and he's going to have a good lead down into Abbey and Farm Curve. The rest of the field towards the back, not really formed up. They're still fighting from Servi Seppa on back. And here we ride on board with the 16 machine of Manuel Perdesi's. That's kind of in the middle of this field. We head through Village, the Loop, and onto the Wellington Straight for the first time, as it looks like Williams was able to close the gap a little bit to Sainz, but he's going to get a good draft down this straightaway, and Sainz might have enough of a gap to defend on the inside.
Yeah, here comes Callan Williams. Slipstream City, for the first time of many in this race, doesn't quite make the inroads that he would have hoped to, so crucially Greg's just already got that buffer up big enough to not come under threat into the first time at Brooklands. Number 5 car taking that swooping line at Luffield. Lots of different answers to how you want to take that corner. Turns out it's worked quite well for him because Ashton's actually going to come under threat from behind. Mitchell Ian Green closing up.
Yeah, Ashton got a little bit, I think, wider than he wanted to, and here comes Mitchell Ian Green. He's already picked off Frank Newen, who has dropped into the 5th position. So far, so good for everyone as we now into Maggots and Beggots, and this is where these cars are going to be hanging on. Mitchell Ian Green maybe a little bit too close to comfort to Jack Ashton, and indeed he is. He has to back off a little bit in order to maintain a little bit of that downforce. But you can't really sacrifice that much of your top speed, otherwise you're under threat, because here comes Frank Newen with a big dose of draft down the hanger straight, and he's going to get a perfect pass into Stowe on the outside.
Yep, he set it up nicely. He'll have the opportunity to swoop round, but Frank, as ever, not wanting to take a risk this early on into the race, just tucks in behind Green into this braking zone. Really tricky into Vale because it actually just goes that little bit downhill as you reach the end of the braking zone. So you've got to be careful to avoid lockups or running on, and then you accelerate round through this final corner, absolutely flat, and that's a lap done.
So far, so good. We make it home. All cars so far still on track. The only one that appealed to have any of a problem was Alan Jolly, who's a bit far off from Joy Singles, down in 16th position. But we ride on the back wing of Michelin Green, and he has Frank Nguyen, Barb, Norris, Stack, Zeiger, and Birchhold all in view. And again, here comes this long straightaway down the Wellington Straight, where you can get a good dose of draft. But Brooklyn's, we were talking about it before we came on the air. It's a very hard corner to pass, as it looks like Ashton might be going for the inside of Williams. No, he thinks better of it, backs out.
However, there is a move further down the field that was absolutely lovely. Ashton looking to set up the move into Luffield, comes back underneath the 5 as the 5's on the racing line, but ultimately Williams has just enough to pull it back for that characteristic late apex. Ashton tucks in behind and he slipstreams once again on the run to Copse.
He might get an opportunity down into Copse, but it's such a wide and flat-out corner. Might even be best for that 3-car to just lift a little bit, just to save this downforce as we head into Maggots and Beggots. How close can Jack Ashton stay to the number 5 of Callan Williams? And the answer is, I think, closer than you might expect. I was kind of expecting this 3-car to get a little bit upset, but it's early on in the race. The tires are still pretty fresh, so he's going to have plenty of grip. And now down the hanger straight. Now this is going to be a big dose of draft, and he's extremely close to the 5. And Williams is giving him that inside option as they head down into Stowe. Look out, here comes Jack Ashton, the Fordzilla driver. Can he make it stick and make it work? Not quite. Williams is still there hanging on as they head into 16 and 17. The final chicane. Williams now has the inside. Good close racing from both of them, and Williams, beautiful defense from Jack Ashton. He holds on to second place.
He positioned his car absolutely perfectly through the Vale chicane as well. Just didn't quite open up the cutback for Ashton. As a result, Ashton had to tuck in behind. There's the 10 car, Tony Stack, into the pit. So that's clearly not gone to plan for the yellow and green machine.
I'm wondering if he's taken some sort of evasive action or if he's down on pit road for some sort of penalty. Because we did see that back half of the field kind of stack up at the start. No pun intended, obviously. And now, with these two fighting, that's brought Michelin Green back into the conversation. And now Ashton has to worry about trying to attack Williams and not letting Greg Sainz get away and trying to defend from Green and not letting himself slip out of the podium places.
Yeah, it removes some of the opportunities, because like we saw last time, Ashton does have the option to run it a little bit deep through Brooklands to open up Luffield that little bit more and get underneath the car ahead. But now if he does that, what he'll actually just be doing is opening up the door for Michelin Green. So it all comes back to just where do you go for it, and it needs to be decisive, else you'll just get overtaken instead. And
now Green on the gearbox of Ashton as they head through Maggots and Beggots. This is a great onboard shot we're getting right here from the 15. How close can he hang on to get a good run on the hanger straight? The answer is pretty darn close, as he's going to get a good dose of draft going into Stowe, but I don't think he's going to be close enough to really make a move. It'll be a really deep lunge, if anything, but I think right now they're going to hold position.
That sort of lunge is doable near the end of the race, and obviously it's very much a high-risk, high-reward maneuver, so you wouldn't want to be pulling it off with about 14 laps still to go in this race, but uphill braking into Stowe can assist you with getting it stopped, and ultimately, if it goes wrong, there's plenty of space for which you can bail into. So it is there, it's just whether or not you actually want to use it.
And remember, this is a 17-lap race, just a little over 50 miles in total that we're running here. So these tires are going to wear out, and we've seen from weeks past, some of these drivers are really, really strong in the long run, and some of them not so much. Just look at Remedy under attack from Servi. Seppa around the outside. Seppa almost made it stick. That was going to be a beautiful move, but Remedy slams the door and says, not today. Seppa started all the way back in the 15th position. He's made up a handful of places already, knocking on the door of the top 10.
It was intelligent from Seppa. There's a couple little sausage curbs hidden in the grass there, so you don't want to run over it half-heartedly. And in the end, Seppa making the right decision, tucking back behind. He'll slipstream the 14 down the straightaway once again, but not going to get close enough to try and move into the Brooklands Luffield complex.
And here is a replay of, I think, the move. I think Seppa actually got the position, and this was the 12, sending it down the inside, and Seppa just got a little bit wide, and it was a brilliant timing there from Stefan Remedy to get into the top 10, and now he's going to have to defend viciously from the Finnish driver, as he's also a little bit behind Burchell. This fighting has created a big gap. He's about 3 seconds behind that 8 machine. He's trying to chase down Thomas Zaga right on board with the orange machine, not too far behind. This is Joris Ingles. Did not qualify, started all the way at the rear of the field. He's trying to get Paredes, who started in about the 7th position, so the 16 car has fallen a bit back at this start, and he's trying to hang on, I think.
Yeah, he's in a nice position to do so, isn't he? Close enough to pick up a draft, not so close that he's hurting his tyres through the quick corners. And to be honest, if you've had a little bit of a bad start, this is probably the right point in the race just to recuperate, get control of the situation again, and then you can slowly make progress through the cars ahead throughout the remainder of the race. Apparently, he disagrees with me. He is on the limit as he outbreaks himself into Vale. That's going to cost him handfuls and chunks of time as they come through to complete the lap, though.
You mentioned that downhill braking can get really, really tricky, and now Ingles has almost lost vision of the 16 car in front. That gap went from a little under a second to now almost 2 seconds. Now, so he's going to have plenty of time to make up. Right now we head to Loic Barb, who was passed, if you saw in the background of the shot, by Mario Norris. These two have been fighting since the start of the race, as we see Ashton and Williams getting close and personal. Ashton has actually gotten around Williams into Brooklands, and now they head to the exit of Luffield. Can Williams get back around, as now the 3 car is sitting in P2, but Williams is going to have a big dose of draft as they head into Copse, but I don't know if there's going to be much he can do.
He's going to get very close, actually. Where's the braking point? It's incredibly late in these cars due to the downforce. Ashton's going to go wide. That is doable. Plenty of runoff there. Got to be careful you don't pick up some sort of slowdown penalty if you go too far beyond, but seems like Ashton's got away with it, and he'll live to fight another day. Here's the pass in the bottom right corner. Ashton pulls out of the slipstream on the inside into Brooklands, I believe, and ultimately that is the textbook Silverstone pass. Just get it done, park yourself in the apex of Luffield, and the guy just can't get back through.
Now Ashton into P2, Williams down to P3. Mitchell and Green had kind of lost these two a little bit, so Williams is not under threat and can try and chase Ashton back down. There's that silver 15 other Rust Racing driver not too far behind. But now Ashton has a bit of a tall order. He's got 12 laps to close up to Greg Seitz. And as we saw last week, Greg Seitz getting away and getting in clean air is not recommended by any driver in the Indy Pro 2000 series.
No, if you're looking for comparisons, he's sort of the Jorge Lorenzo of this series. Once he gets out in front, he'll be absolutely metronomic with his lap times, all whilst conserving the tyres perfectly. So Ashton's going to have a really, really tough job to close the gap, let alone get past him.
And Ashton's got to also make sure he doesn't let Colin Williams get back to the inside, as now Williams is closing and closing and closing, and he might try and move down into Brooklands, but it's a little early for a late dive, and I think the 5 knows this. He's being very, very cautious and I think conservative with his moves, because he had an opportunity going into Copse, but didn't want to risk it and send it down. So I think patience might be the name of the game here.
A little bit of a fight with the rear end for Jack there as well, so he needs to be careful he doesn't spin the rears up too much, lest he be suffering from the tyre wear that he suffered from in previous races, actually. So certainly something that could come into play. Williams nice and close through Copse once again. He's a little bit more, I don't know the word, tidy through Copse maybe? He doesn't use so much of that runoff that is clearly available to the drivers, so potentially just keeping himself in check, making sure that he doesn't pick up a penalty and driving on the safe side of things.
I think it's driver preference as well for how far you want to go on the track and how much of the rumble strips and stuff you want to use, as we get a brilliant drone shot going down into Stowe. That is the gap from Sainz back to Ashton, and the gaps in between all these drivers right now kind of steady. Every one of them kind of hovering around 1 to 2 seconds. No real fights going on. The closest battle is for P2. Williams closing down on Jack Ashton, but it's a very different feel, like having to go all the way out in the rumble strips and not using the rumble strips. It really depends on driving style, and Jack Ashton, we know, is one to take risks, one to really love running on the edge, and maybe Colin Williams is just a calmer, smoother driver that just wants consistency over pure pace.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few drivers that are more happy to take risks than Jack Ashton. He's as aggressive and exciting as it comes, and has the benefits and the negatives of doing so. You know, we've talked about that tyre wear, but ultimately, if he ends up in a scrap near the end of the race, he won't care. He'll come out on top of that 9 times out of 10, regardless of what tyres. He could have no tyres and he's still going to win the fight at least 50% of the time. So Callum Williams got his work cut out. Ashton sliding it in through Brooklands. They come into Luffield once again. Williams looking pretty happy, able to keep that tighter line around the long right-hander. There's a snap of oversteer though. That'll give Ashton just a little bit of breathing space as they come onto the classic pit straight.
A little bit of breathing space. He's still going to get the draft and still probably going to get a good run through Cops, but not really much his 5 machine can really do as Sainz gets a little bit smaller and smaller with each passing lap. Sainz last time around was about a 53.5, Ashton and Williams a 53.6, so it's only a 10th difference. And even Greg Sainz's fastest lap is not at a blindingly fast pace, only a 53.4. He has been known to get down into the 52s, which that is even, I think, scarier for the rest of the field. He's the only driver, I think, in the series to have a race lap time in the 52s so far this week. As we had Williams going down into Stowe. Again, this is just going to be a mind game, a game of patience. If, you know, Ashton makes a mistake, it's Williams' race to lose. But if Williams makes a mistake, Ashton's in the clear.
Yeah, it really is. It's chicken at the moment, for lack of a better example. Who's going to blink first? Is Callum going to send one up the inside and kind of force the error, force the action from Ashton? Or is it going to be Ashton who pushes that a little bit too hard, gets up on a curb, spins up the rears and opens up the inside for the 5 car? It's all to see how it plays out. Plenty of time left in this one as well, barely at the halfway mark. So it's very much just waiting to see who's got more tyres, who's got more bravery as well as we reach the latter third of the race.
Ashton dipping a bit of a tyre into the dirt, just letting that sprinkle on the racetrack. I don't know if that's like a Mario Kart style slow down, like maybe like a banana or anything like that, but clearly not working. As Callum Williams stays right close behind. And again, fall off not really happening. As you can see, a little bit of correction there from the 5 machine, but Ashton also goes wide for good measure. So these two are really trying to drive at the limit. And I think Ashton may also be more focused on trying to get Greg Sainz than defending from Callum Williams.
Yeah, interesting there that both drivers made the same, and then in quotation marks, mistake as they did on the previous lap. It was the exact same correction at the exact same point from Callum Williams, and Jack Ashton did the same wheel into the same dirt as he did on the previous lap as well. So potentially that's just how these two have found is quickest to get around the corner, you know, use the oversteer to pivot the car or go a little bit deep because you haven't pivoted the car. But it's interesting, isn't it, to see that sort of messy driving style coming in at a circuit that you would think would be all about flow.
Frank Newman either had a massive mistake or has some sort of car issues. He's pulled over and just let the 2 of Lloyd Barb right on past. He was running in the 5th position. I'm wondering if there's an issue for the number 6 machine, as now Mario Norris is promoted into P5, Barb into P6. Maybe just getting wide, getting it all wrong, as Williams gets once again closer and closer to Ashton, and now he's starting to peek out a bit more, trying to show that nose, showing where he's going to try and make a move as we head now down into Village and down into the loop. Is the 5 going to make a move? He's going to try and take a wider entry. It's going to make that exit really, really tighty for a huge run, and indeed, that's exactly what it's done for the 5 machine. He's already closing, and we haven't even gotten onto the straightaway. Here we go, onto the Wellington straight. Here comes Callum Williams. Looking inside. He goes on Jack Ashton. Later on the brakes into Brooklands. Ashton's going to hang tough on the outside, but the outside becomes the inside into left field. Ashton defending hard from Callum Williams. Williams going to try a switchback going right underneath. Ashton goes a little bit wide, and Williams goes back underneath into Woodcock, and they're now going to head into Cops side by side. Greg Sainz is just enjoying this in his rearview mirror as Williams is going to edge out Jack Ashton into Cops, into turn 9, and take away P2, but Ashton goes back. Looks like he's going to go side by side into Maggots and Beckett's. This is not recommended for either of these two drivers. Side by side, Jack Ashton saying, no, I am not going to lose P2 to you, and goes back into second place, but now the 5 machine's going to have another chance down the hanger straight into Stowe.
Ashton
Right
missed the
behind.
apex. He missed the apex at turn 13.
Ooh.
That's what's allowed all of this. A little bit of marginal on the blocking there from Ashton. Pulls back to the racing line. That's going to compromise him on the exit as they run down the hill towards Vale. It's going to be late on the brakes from Williams. Ashton leaves him enough space. That's going to compromise him into the penultimate corner as they accelerate now into Club. All about getting the power down perfectly. Remember last lap, Callum Williams pulled out the slipstream here. Now he's actually putting out the slipstream for a move. He told Ashton this is what he was going to do. 1 lap later, he's got the 5 car up the inside of the 3, swoops out towards the apex of turn 2, and that is magnificent driving from both of these guys.
Well, we head back into Village in the loop, and you know what? They're going to say, well, heck with it, let's do it again. As now Ashton tries to take the wider line and getting around the 5 car. Both of them on the power, with both the rear ends sliding all over the place. They're really fighting hard. Meanwhile, all of this fighting, Craig Seitz was 2 seconds faster that last lap. So Seitz now has a 4.5 second lead, and this fighting has also brought Mitchell Ian Green back into the conversation for a podium. A little bit slower through the center of the corner was the 5 machine of Williams. I think Ashton may have overdriven it a little bit. They're both pushing each other to the limit. There's that silver machine of Mitchell Ian Green now in the fight for a podium. And now things get to calm down a little bit, but Callan Williams said, well, I'm done playing the chess game. I'm just going to have a straight-up duel with you through the entire lap, all the way around. I think they were side by side for 80% of the lap.
Yeah, they got alongside on the exit of the loop, so that's around about turn 5. And then we didn't know who had won the battle until turn 1 on the subsequent lap. It was absolutely incredible stuff. As you mentioned, Mitchell Ian Green has now brought himself up onto the back of this, and he's there. He's in the slipstream, tucked in lovely into that reduced air resistant zone. And if these two kick off again, Ian Green's going to be right there to take advantage.
Now the question is, how much of the tire and how much of the setup did you really have to sacrifice? There's a little bit of a lockup from Ashton. Green looks to the inside. He's going to have a different style of a run down into Vale and into the exit of Club, as now Mitchell Ian Green is on the offensive to Jack Ashton. This is for the final podium position as we head into Abbey. Oh boy, Green can maybe make a move in the Village and the loop, but it's going to be tight, and it really depends on the run he can get off the corner.
That's the second time Ashton's lost the rear end just a little bit within half a lap, so potentially he's already beginning to struggle with those tires. We know that he's not been great in terms of management of that resource in the past, but he's on a lap 11 of 17, and once again he can't get the power down through the double left-hander as they exit the loop. That's going to allow Ian Green to close all the way up into Brooklands. Not quite close enough to do it there, but Ashton struggled with the power. He needs to get it right exiting now, else Ian Green's going to get a fantastic run down to Cops. Again, the rear end on the 3 car just a little bit fidgety, but doesn't cost him any time this round, and the 15 just has to settle down for yet another corner.
Going into turn 9, going into Cops, I think he's going to have a good run into Maggots and Beckett's and exiting onto Chapel onto the hanger straight, but how much of a draft can this 15 really get, and how close can he remain behind? This was a question we asked early on in the race, but now it's 10 laps later from that first lap of the race. The tires are a little worn down, the fuel is a bit lighter, tempers maybe slightly a bit higher depending on who you are, as Ashton again a little bit wide onto Chapel as we head now to the hanger straight. Looks like the compromises exit just a little bit, but that 15 is just too far back, I think, for a lunge at the moment. It's under a second, under half a second. Now into Stowe. Looks pretty safe for Jack Ashton, unless a big run out of Stowe for Mitchell Ian Green. Can he be late on the brakes going into the Vale chicane? No, Ashton puts that car right in the inside. And I think Mitchell Ian Green just being patient, just trying to wait for this 3 car to slip up again. You're mentioning the rears. You know, he's letting them up. The back end's not a very happy camper right now. As we head back into the field, Ingalls and Paredes have been fighting back and forth for quite some time. And this is the closest these two have been in a while. This colorful 16 machine started 8th, fell down to 12th, is hanging on.
Yeah, it's he's still there. He's still right there in what seems to be the primary color mobile, which hurts my eyes a little bit, I'm not going to lie. The all-orange 9 car closes in, able to hold a much tighter line through turn 1. That'll set him up nicely for Farm Curve, but not quite close enough to open up the overtake. Here's Mitchell Ian Green on the outside into Brooklands. Ashton's pulled this one off. Can he now have it pulled off on him? Not quite. Ian Green closes only up. Almost contact at Luffield. Ashton fights through her end on the power once again. Touches the dirt. Ian Green neat and tidy behind. Closing, takes the minimal amount of distance as they come towards the national pit straight. He's not going to have the opportunity into Copse, but he might get one out of it.
Yes, 3-car, I think, is just hanging on for dear life. This 15 is getting antsier and antsier as the laps tick down. We are now about 5 to go. This is the fight for the edge of the podium, and Williams has not really dropped these two. He's still under a second away from Jack Ashton, so don't count out maybe even the second place in this for Mitchell, Ian Green. We head down the hangar straight. Everyone kind of spread out to the point where you can't really get close enough unless the 15 wants to take a dive down into Stowe, but I think he's learned from the past few laps. This 3-car is not that strong in some of these high-speed corners. He can maybe get a good exit out of Stowe and take it down the Vale chicane, but a bit farther back on this occasion than maybe he would have liked. It looks like Williams had a little bit of a mistake heading out of Stowe. Ashton closes back up. It's a three-way fight for these final two positions, and it's going to come down to the wire, I think, depending on how much of these tires are just worn out. You can see the 3-car's already worn them out, but I'm thinking Kylie Williams and all that fighting with Ashton, he's not doing much better.
Well, yeah, we were talking about Ashton's tire wear, but ultimately he was the one that had free air for lap after lap after lap. Williams was in the slipstream. That'll be burning up the fronts, and we saw the corrections as well, trying to get the rear end in line. So he's probably feeling pretty similar as a result of following a car for so long. The guy who has none of those problems is Mitchell Ian Green. He's now on the back of this pack, so he'll be beginning to get a little bit more wear on his tires, but he'll be nowhere near the magnitude of an effect that the two cars ahead of him are feeling.
Also, Mitchell has been pretty much by himself, kind of like single car, not really fighting with anybody in that 4th place position for quite some time. As Colin and Jack have been really going at it since the start of this race. You can see further back in the back of shot, there's Mario Norris, who currently rounds out the top 5. Barb about 3 seconds back from him. And here's the 12 machine, a little bit out of it. And here's Berchtold, who's closed up to the back of Stefan Remedy. He's dispatched a Servi Seppa, and now Berchtold looking to try and make his way through the field in the dying stages. He can get around the 14, but it's going to be a tall order, I think, to track down Thomas Zeiger.
Yeah, it's it's a fair way up to Zeiger, some almost 6 seconds after he's overtaken the 14 until he finds another car. But he's in a nice position. That gives him plenty of time to plan out this overtake, not to do anything unnecessarily risky at this stage. Just follow through, neat and tidy, pull it down to the apex on the exit of this whole complex. That allows you to get on the power just that little bit earlier. But apparently, what I'm saying is absolute nonsense, because Remedy didn't do any of that, was not neat and tidy, didn't get anywhere near the apex, and yet his exit was even better.
Yeah, sometimes, neat and tidy may not be the way to go. Just a little bit messy is all fine. You ever have like a nice sandwich every now and then? You don't want like the neat and tidy, like picture perfect sandwich. Sometimes a messy sandwich is a delicious sandwich.
I was just about to say,
what I'm trying to say, it's lunchtime.
I think my hair would be quite happy with you saying that a little bit messy is sometimes the way to go as opposed to neat and tidy. That would suit me on most days, a little bit or a lot bit messy.
Now, Berchtold, he's going to try and get into Remedy's head a little bit, maybe force Remedy to make a mistake. We already saw this 12 car really take a nice move to Servi Seppa, and Seppa not moving through the field like he did last week, which I think, this is a much different animal than the Sebring. This is a lot smoother, a lot more high-speed corners, less technical bits, I think. Less slow-speed corners. Only really the loop is the only corner you're going down in the first gear here, whereas back at Sebring there was 2 heavy braking zones down in the first gear. But this is going to be a good fight, I think, until the end. It really depends on what this 8 car can do, I think, under braking. He's going to have to make an ambitious move.
Yeah, I mean, put simply, Berchtold needs to figure out how to get a quali lap in. The fact that he didn't set times and he's starting all the way from the back, to me, means that he just needs to push that little bit less hard, stop getting those X's, put a valid lap in. At the moment, no worries about valid laps, no worry about X's, just get past the car ahead as this battle's heating up between...
Oh, contact! There goes the 9 machine of Joris Ingles, and after fighting with the 16 all race long, a heavy hit.
I mean, it's so easily done, isn't it? They come out of it, the run towards Copse, it's all about trying to carry the speed through the corner. The 9's just gone for the apex there. I mean, he's got nobody to blame. apart from himself, is Joris Engels. He's absolutely turned in on the 16, Manuel Paredes there. 16 had nowhere to go on the inside. We'll get to see it from the overhead cam, and I think this will show it absolutely perfectly. So watch the line of the 16, completely fair, leaves a car's width. Engels not got the move done. He'll pull all the way across, and contact is inevitable there. He gets what his actions deserve, I think, is the way to put that. Fortunately, keeps it out the barrier, so potentially can limp back to the pits as opposed to just being game over.
Yeah, I think he was just surprised at how wide the 16 made that corner. But now, well, here's the fight for second again as they spread out. So they've dropped Mitchell Lee and Green again as they did earlier. And Ashton going to the inside of Brooklyn's. That's ambitious from the 3 machine as they get out for left field. We've seen this time and time again. It looks like Williams is also struggling with his tires and they get the power down. They're both sideways in the exit of the corner. A little bit into the gravel goes Jack Ashton. And right now they're going to get a big run into Copse. But I think, knowing what just happened, I would be scared for Jack Ashton making a dive down in the corner. And indeed, he does not make that dive. He's going to have to get a good run through Maggots and Beckett's to get a draft down the hanger straight, though.
Yeah, worrying thing for Ashton there. We spoke about the rear tires going. He actually got a little bit of understeer that then became oversteer on the exit of left field. So he potentially could be losing all 4 corners worth of grip now as opposed to just the rear end of the car. And when that happens, it does get harder and harder to put up a fight with somebody because not only do you not have the turn in, but you can't get the power down. And it just compounds the issue as you drift more and more. At the moment he's got the slipstream though, that allows him to get nice and close on the run up the hill, but ultimately not quite close enough to make a move. Williams closes that line down relatively easily. Into Vale, Ashton actually has been a little bit weaker than Williams there, and he knows that. Doesn't pull out the slipstream, doesn't go for the move, just stays behind, and Williams gets a lovely exit through Club. And that will just give him maybe a car's length to compensate for the slipstream down the pit straight. Down the Hamilton Straight even, and this one's been renamed now. We got Hamilton Straight, which is going to take me...
I'm using the official iRacing map, unfortunately.
It's going to take me at least a couple of years to start getting that right. You know, if I'm still calling Formula, it doesn't matter. There's action. Doesn't matter what nonsense I'm talking. I was about to say if I'm still calling Force India, but a huge slide from Williams. That's going to open up Jack Ashton's run. He's got the slipstream. Is he going to be able to get to the inside? No, Williams really narrow with his line all the way across the left-hand side of the circuit, then follows Ashton back out towards the right. They swoop in towards this crucial corner, all about setting the move up into left field. Ashton's got the inside, Williams on the outside. We've seen this one play out before. Williams gets on the power that little bit more easily. Ashton wise to it, however, pulls to the inside, doesn't use all the road. Going to force Williams to go the long way around. Nice and respectful between the two of them. A little bit of movement on the cars as well, just trying to unsettle each other as they come towards Copse. Williams with an earlier turn in, that'll allow him to get on the power quicker, but Ashton ultimately has track position as they head in towards Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Williams to the outside. That's going to be the inside.
No, he had to back out of it there. He had to back out of it. There was no way he was going to send it up the inside, but there's going to be only 1 lap left when he gets to the start-finish line. Ashton able to retain P2 for now, but again, this fighting has brought Mitchell Lee and Green back in the conversation. He's only a second away.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Ian Green is loving this. He thought he dropped away from the podium positions. Now he's right there with these two looking like they might crash into each other at any moment. Ashton's run out of stall once again. It's actually a little bit weaker. This last part of the circuit is not good for him. Williams closing all the time on the brakes. That time not close enough, but he'll know that that's an option coming into the final lap.
So here we go. Greg Sainz has crossed the line and will begin the final lap. There is the one machine that has led almost every step of the way. On the left side of your screen, we get the battle for the final podium places. Currently, Ashton is ahead of that number 5 machine. But as we head out of farm into village, can that 5 of Williams get deep under braking? No. A little bit of curb there from Ashton. We head through the loop and on to the Wellington Straight. This is going to be the key point, I think, for Callan Williams. He's going to have to get a huge draft into Brooklands. How defensive does Jack Ashton get? Williams to the gearbox. Closing, closing, closing. When does he make the move? Ashton goes defensive on the inside. Williams looking to the outside as we head into left fields. The 3 car goes a little bit wide. He's going to be really close to the inside on the exit of left field. There's Mitchell Ian Green. He can come and steal both 3rd and 2nd place if these drivers get into each other.
Yeah, fantastic moment for Green, but he compromised himself. He didn't get the run. Now he's just that little bit too far back as they come towards the second half of the lap.
On wide goes Jack Ashton, but he cuts back right in front of Williams, able to defend P2. Williams is now looking to the entrance of Maggots. Can they get anything there? No. They're going to go through turn 13 and Beckett's, turn 14 and Chapels, on to the hangar straight, and that may be the second to last opportunity for Callan Williams to make a huge dive down to the inside. Ashton down to the inside of the grass, playing defensive, trying to not give up that inside line into Stowe. Williams is closing and closing and closing. They touch ever so slightly. Williams has to back out of it, but he takes that better line. Ashton is going to be running wide. Sainz is going to go across the line and get the win. There's contact as they head into the final chicane. Williams around the outside of Jack Ashton. Can he hold it? The outside becomes the inside. Williams able to shove Ashton off. Here comes Mitchell Lee in green to the inside of Club. Steals third place from Jack Ashton. What a finish. And for poor Jack Ashton, a slight contact on the Vale chicane ends up in him finishing fourth. Mitchell Lee in green. What an opportunistic move. And what a duel Ashton and Williams had. But for Greg Seitz, that was just a clinic he put on. 6.5 seconds the gap from first to second.
Yeah, I could tell you exactly what this is going to be a replay of. Into the final corner. Perfect from Williams. It's possible, but it's incredibly difficult to get that move right. Edges Ashton out, and ultimately that's all the invitation Mitchell needed. Puts his car on the inside, blocks off.
For second. But again, for Greg Seitz, this was just kind of a clinic. He got out front early, was able to get that jump on the start, led the whole way through. There was really nothing stopping that one machine.
Yeah, if you asked me to predict how the race was going to go at the start, no matter how optimistic I am about a fantastic race, you can always put a safe bet on Greg Seitz leading at the end of the first lap and then just being metronomic from that point out. And that's exactly what he did once again.
Seitz takes home P1. Callan Williams, a awesome P2 for him. And Mitchell Lee in green just stolen a home podium for Jack Ashton as he falls down to P4. Mario Norris, very good run for that 12 machine. Kind of a lonely fifth place for him. Bug Barb coming home in the sixth position. Frank Newman, Mr. Consistent, had a bit of an error somewhere midway through the race. Fell from 5th to 7th, but still good points for him. Thomas Zeiger finished his 8th. Stefan Remedy with a big move up the inside of Servi Seppa was able to get P9. Fabio Berchhold rounding out the top 10. Servi Seppa started at the back, got all the way up to 9th, but had to fall back into P11. Manuel Paredes had some slight contact with Joy Singles, but able to limp it home into P12. Alan Jolly in P13. Tony Stack had some sort of issue at the start, had to come down pit road. Ended up P14. Joy Singles, obviously with that contact, down into Cops, gets into P15. And Andrew L. Berry, kind of a miserable day for him in P16. Well, for everyone but Greg Seitz, that was a very, very entertaining and exciting race. Greg Seitz was practically running time trials out at the front of this field and was able to take home a really good win for this number one machine to try and close the gap to Jack Ashton in the points.
Yeah, it was absolutely perfect. Once again, like we mentioned, he did the Greg Seitz race is what it's becoming. Just start to finish, don't get challenged, don't get in a fight, and at that point he's unbeatable. I'll be interested to see in the coming weeks what happens, because it seems inevitable that eventually Jack Ashton is going to be able to stuff one up the inside into turn 1, and then we'll get to see what the championship contenders are really made of when they have to get a little bit more dirty, because we've not seen that from Seitz this season.
And we still have plenty of racing action to go this season. Obviously, we stay international with Indy Pro 2000s as we head now to Imola next week, which is a track where this is probably not going to happen the entire way around, where we're going to be side by side the whole way around. If we do, I'll be impressed. However, this was just the slow-mo of this final move, and Williams just perfectly getting it done. And that slight contact, that rim to the wing, is what upsets the 3-car just enough to let Mitchell Lee in green by. And it was a really, really close one. And by the way, speaking of Jack Ashton, we actually have him in the interview slot, so we can bring him in here.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Jack Ashton, it's Jonathan in the booth. You have a copy?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
What was your thought on the last lap through the Vale chicane? How close were you to getting to getting into either of your other competitors, to getting into Williams and Green.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I'd like to say what a great race. Like that is what I do this for. So coming fourth to me, that doesn't matter. Like that was brilliant. Like I've really enjoyed that. There's so much tactics involved to try and stay with Kalen, and it was such a hard race. Well done to Greg as well, by the way, to getting that win. He just got away nicely. But yeah, I knew I had to defend hard, but I knew if Kalen can swing it around the outside there, he can hold it on the outside, and then he'll have the inside for the next couple of corners. And then, to my surprise, in came Mitchell, and that really put a cat amongst the pigeons for me. And I came fourth out of all of it, second to fourth. What a pain. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'll take a race like that any day rather than winning and by half a mile and not really enjoying it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
And there was a lap, I think midway through the race, it was like lap 11 where you and Kalen, I think we're side by side from the loop all the way until Abby on the next lap. Like how were you able to manage keeping it on the track and giving him enough space in order to get to the end like that? Yeah,
so well, first things is at the start of the race, Kalen being a new sort of name that I've not seen in the championship, I was a bit nervous. You don't really know how to drive around people you don't know, so I was just a bit nervous at first. But he gave some really great, clean, respective driving this race. So I could sense that from his driving style. So that's why I decided to try and give it Millage with him. And yeah, like you say, we had some good side by side moments. It's really hard here because we have to run quite a bit of downforce on this setup compared to a lot of the other tracks we've had to use really low downforce because there's a lot of high-speed corners. So when behind people, you really don't get a lot of downforce on your front wing. So you're trying to turn into like cops or turn one. It's so hard because there's just no front-end grip. So you have to back off before the corner, which is usually flat out. So it's really hard work. But yeah, the racing was spot on. Really enjoyed that.
And then after this week, we still head to Imola next week. Like, what are you kind of expecting there? It's a lot tighter circuit, less margin for error, but kind of a classic old school circuit similar to Silverstone.
Yeah, the one thing that scared me about Imola is the curbs. I really don't know how the car's going to cope. I remember at Sebring, there was quite a few issues with the setup bottoming out and damaging the floor. So you can imagine curbs at Imola is really going to prove hard to either one, avoid it, and two, be fast without damaging stuff. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure about the track yet. I like the track, but in this car it could prove very tricky. So we'll find out in practice this week.
All right, well, thank you for your time, Jack. I'm sorry you kind of got a podium stolen from you at the end there, but I'm glad you had really good and enjoyable racing. And it was really fun out here to watch. Really,
yeah.
Really entertaining.
That's the thing. I thought I came into the broadcast booth last week, and I thought I won't come in this week. But I thought after a race like that, I can't miss the opportunity to talk about it. So yeah, it was really good.
All right, well, thank you for your time, Jack, and of course these viewers will see you next week, but I will see you tomorrow for the Club Cup race at Ivor at Suzuka. That should be another fun one.
Yeah, that should be good fun in the MX-5 at Suzuka. There's going to be some good racing for sure.
All right, well, thank you for your time, and we'll catch you later.
Catch you later. Thank you.
That was Jack Ashton, current championship leader, who finished down in 4th place. And reminder, we still have some epic areas to go to: Imola, Spa, Road Atlanta, and then one oval, just to kind of throw it in there among the chaos at USA Speedway. Don't really know what to expect next week or even the week after.
Yeah, Imola, like you mentioned, you would think it's a Grand Prix circuit, the same as Silverstone, but it is completely different in its characteristics. So we could see the tables just completely flipped when we reach there next week. And then we go straight on to an oval, which is yet another change of pace. I'll be interested to see how tire wear comes into that one in particular. Some people may be less excited about that, but also it's all about turning left. So ultimately it's all the weight on one side of the car, and we've seen issues with people in the past. Add into that all the overtaking, constant side-by-side action you get at ovals, and it should be a fantastic race. And then we round out the championship with Spa and Road Atlanta, two absolute classic circuits that never fail to amaze me in terms of what they produce. And I'm just excited. I'm just very, very excited.
Yeah, this should be a great end of your season. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us here at Silverstone for the Indy Pro 2000 Series. Congratulations to Greg Seitz on a good win, and it was a fun one all throughout the field to watch. For myself, for Tom Davis, for our producer Hugo Luis, we say good night from Silverstone. If you want more racing action, stay on the channel. We do have the IR01 series for Friday Night Primetime coming up, and we'll see you all next week at Imola.